technique is ill, son. Watch how I spill one. Peace to Biggie, Tupac, Big L and Big Pun. Havoc on his feature stack. Snitches, house niggas, children watchers, they produce the same pattern. Somebody raped our women, murdered our babies, hit us with the cracks and guns in the early 80s. For those that murdered me shall stand before God, to fall at the hands of fate, then out comes the rod. Bring it back, bring it back, bring it back, bring it back, bring it back. What the fuck is going on? I can't go to sleep. Feds jumping out their jeeps, I can't go to sleep. Babies with flowers on their cheeks, it's hard to go to sleep. It's both 2 6s twice, I couldn't go to sleep. Hey yo, we deep in the stands, we carry can guns. Whippy got hit her with the big shit. Bung bung, that Master G was mine. Then pass the league spot. Don't pass our niggas again. You took a cheap shot. Not knowing fucking with me, you get your meat chop. You thought we fell in our face, you think the beef stop? Call on the chariots, call on the ambulance. You better smile, my nigga, you want candy again. Gangsta bros, these bees, the laws walk with big balls. Nigga, motherfucker, if you that I can take was yours. I'm the nigga that made you, man. When your rap wasn't doing well, I'm the nigga that gave you a hand.
Learn to love each other. Don't get mad, cause it ain't that bad. Look at who you are. You've come so far. It's in your head. Just be a man. Get the jelly out your spine.
I can't go to sleep, I can't shut my eyes. They shot the father in his mom's building 7 times. They shot Malcolm in the chest, one of his little seeds. Jesse watched as they shot King on the balcony. Exported Marcus, God because he tried to spark us with the knowledge of ourselves and our forefathers. Old Jack claims she heard the rifle shots crackling, her husband head in the head. He tried to put it back in. America's watching, bloodstained ink blotches. Mega took one to the skull for integrating college. It's just science, somebody, this is trick knowledge. They try to keep us as slaves and still slave my dollars. Walking through park, you're drunk as a fuck, looking around like there was so many to break this world down. They got me trapped up in the metal gate, just stressed out with hate, and this gives me no time to relax and use my mind and meditate. What should I do? Grab a blunt or a brew? Grab a 2-2 and run out there and pick this fucking violence in you? I can't go to sleep. I can't shut up, son.
The power is in your head. Stop all this crime and be a man.
Yo, 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 yo. We back in this bit for another. This is a quick one. Episode 200. This is going to be go deep. It's going to be a continuation of the last one because last time we talked a little bit about Vlad, but we talked a little bit more about like military intelligence in the rap game. So Vlad is in the rap game, but he's going through some shit right now that people kind of got it fucked up. People kind of got it mixed up. They kind of see some fucked up shit with Vlad, but they don't really. I'm gonna pinpoint it on this episode, but let's get into some music real quick. I'm gonna use my skills first to fuck with your brain with some music, and then after that, we're gonna fucking go right in on that dude, Vladimir. You bitch.
Queens get the money, niggas still screaming paper chasing. But presidential candidates is planning wars with other nations over steak with Masons. Pregnant teens give birth to intelligent gangsters, they daddy's faceless. Play this, by your stomach, let my words massage it and rub it. I'll be his daddy if there's nobody there to love it. Tell him his name Nasir, tell him how he got here. Mama was just having fun with someone above her years. Niggas is still hating, talking that Nas done fell off with rhyming. He rather floss with diamonds. They pray, please God, let him spit that Uzi in the army lining. That shorty do-wop rolling ooh-wops in the park reclining. Take 27 MCs, put them in a line and they out of alignment. My assignment since he said retirement, hiding behind email in the chronic. Get rich but dies rhyming, this is high science. Now add 23 more for Queens to be more. I'm over their heads like a bulimic on a seesaw. Now that's 50 porch monkeys ate up at the same time. Nasty NASDAQ, y'all gon' bow homes. This Dow Jones, 80 cal chrome. Needed time alone to zone. The Mac left his iPhone and his 9 at home. My queen used a milkshake to bring y'all to my slaughterhouses. I do this for the group home kids in boarding houses. This that nigga shit that's on the album. For them niggas inside the chalk line in 40 houses. Bring back Arsenio. Hip-hop was aborted, so Nas breathes life back into the embryo. Let us make man in our image. Spit it, I'm Huey P. and Louis V. at the eulogy, throwing Molotovs for Emmett. And you ain't as hot as I is. All of these false prophets is not messiahs. You don't know how high the sky is, the square mileage of earth or what pi is. I'm the shaky hand that touched George Foreman and Zaire, the same hand that punched down devils that brought down the towers.
All right, we back. Hope y'all like that song. That was some quick and easy shit. I did not chop, did not screw it. It's just played. So let's get into it real quick. So Vlad, right now, I was just watching my homeboy's show, Urban Politician, on YouTube. Dude got a real good channel, but he had a video this morning. I watched that shit. And it was talking about more of the situation between Vlad, Farrakhan, the rest of those dudes. Everyone know the situation Vlad going through. If you're watching my shit on some Snyder Cut shit and you're not really in tune in the hip hop world, DJ Vlad is he's a culture vulture, but he's more than a culture vulture. Everyone in the hip hop industry now is trying to cancel him because he said something or disrespected Minister Farrakhan, Louis Farrakhan. But we know on this Go Deep show, we know how deep that shit really goes. But we're gonna bring some of the Go Deep smartness into the music industry because I don't think the music industry, like my black community, my black homies, brothers, fucking fathers, all shit, I don't think we get it still. And I ain't gonna come at it as no way like, damn, we stupid, blah, blah, blah. Cause I think that's how I used to come at it. And I think that was a big turnoff. But here, the way we're gonna show it is so easy because we been saw Vlad. I think people see that thing right back there that says do work up there on the wall. Bam. Do work. We had a podcast company, me and my brothers, and we fucking did an episode called Do Work TV, our second episode. And we fucking dissed Vlad. We dissed Vlad, but it didn't come out. A series of unfortunate events. It never made it to see the light of day. But we had a great skit where we dissed Vlad because at the time, this was like 4 years ago. But way before anyone was talking about Vlad as this or that. We saw it, or I saw it, so I made this skit. But here's what I want to say. What we looking at now, we're talking about we're gonna cancel Vlad for disrespectful remarks to Louis Farrakhan. All right, so this is go deep, so we're gonna go deep. We're gonna speak the truth, and the only way we're gonna get this shit is if someone speaks the truth, and that's what we're gonna do. So go deep on this situation. Minister Farrakhan is Muslim. Vlad is a Russian Jew. They're both Americans, right? We got the black Muslim versus the white Jew. Encapsulated in the rap game. The rap game. A black culture. A culture that fucking just the rap culture expands through the whole world. Whatever we do, from like the dab, like, you know, everyone in the world was doing Migos dab. The whole world was doing that shit, or whatever, you know, MC Hammer or fucking Wu-Tang Clan, or the little boy, Criss Cross will make you jump. Whatever we do, we fucking amplify it towards the whole world. The whole world picks up on this culture. The whole world eats off this culture. The whole world is influenced by rap culture, a black culture, from movies to everything, fashion, cars, everything. A lot of companies make billions of dollars a year off rap, off the hip hop game. Now, hip hop, if you think about it as the core essence, hip hop stands for high, infinite power, healing our people. Professor Griff told me that one time. Hip hop, it's like a spirit. It's more than a spirit. It's like a culture. We say the culture, but I don't speak in the culture because I don't represent some of the shit that culture does, and I can speak against it because I think the culture, because I'm gonna wind this all back. The culture has sold black Americans out a long time ago. A long time ago. Now you see people now talking like Kanye and Joe Buttons and, you know, people talking about deals and back ends and this, that, or other. But how long was all this evilness quiet? How long did they keep these secrets before now? And they still don't say it all. They still just telling you little bits by bits by bits by bits. But if all of our black leaders knew there was a fucking Tyrannosaurus Rex system preying on black culture, black people, and they allowed it to happen for the last 30, 40 years to billions of dollars to these white people, how are they our leaders? You know what I'm saying? This is why my shit is so important, because I've never sold out to that shit, and I was in the fast track to sell out to that bullshit. But I peeped it. I see it, and it's all right. If we're gonna talk about the Muslim and Jews, the secret relations between black and Jews, let's talk about hip hop. Check this out. The projects. Hip hop came out the project buildings in New York, late 70s to 80s. Project parties. They would fucking steal electricity to, plug in speakers and turntables, and a DJ would come out, and the DJ had an MC, and the MC wasn't rapping. He's just telling his neighborhood why the DJ is playing music, but everyone in the projects come out listening to these two dudes, and then the MC started rapping. He started rhyming. Yo, I'm in the hood, my neighborhood. Everything really ain't all good, or some bullshit. It was simple shit like that. I just freestyled that, so give me some props. But it was just simple shit like that. But he was getting the crowd, he was getting the projects, he was getting the streets. If you lived in New York, which I did, you know New York has a lot of fucking people outside all the time. So these people found a way to make music and entertain themselves in the projects. But who owns the projects? Not black people. Jews probably own the projects. Bankers, white bankers and shit like that owns these project buildings. And saw that, damn, there's a way we can make money off this shit. What they do at night, or what they do when it gets hot, or their block parties, what they do, everyone likes. So we can make a business off of this. We could fucking capitalize off of this. That's what the Jews said. The Muslims, they were out kind of speaking for black people at the time, because from the 60s, it was Malcolm X, who was a Muslim. There was Martin Luther King also, but the Muslim, it was big at that time, you know? Elijah Muhammad, all of these people, it was big coming into hip hop. It was already big. Jews, of course, they were already big. Blacks, us, and if you, in New York, a lot of people are fucking West Indian, Haitian, you know, from down there, Jamaican, Trinidad, Trini, you know. But when they moved to New York, it's controlled, the black community is controlled by like the Muslim, the nation. And that's not the shit on nobody. That's, I mean, they've been holding it down in their way of holding it down for years, you know, whatever. But we're gonna go deep on this shit. And we're only gonna speak the truth, because the only way we wake up from this shit is the truth. So the Muslims and the Jews had to work together to spark off hip hop, with the West Indian African Americans in New York as the act, as the fucking the star, the entertainment. Now, the deals were on the back end. The entertainment are not privy to the deals. The entertainment is not privy to the fucking what's really going on. So the Jews start these rap companies, labels, and they start giving out deals. Record deals to record someone, make a CD, distribute it through the country, and make money off of what they saw these little dudes doing in the park, which is already amped. So I remind you, the essence of hip hop hypes the crowd. MC stands for Master of Ceremonies. Fucking, we hyping the crowd. It's gonna be hyped no matter what. Who's bottling this shit up and selling it? Who's distributing this shit? So the Jews do that with deals. So now black people hear, oh shit, it's fucking lucrative for me to shop myself, my talents, and shop a deal. I might can get out of the projects. I might can get out of the hood. It's lucrative for me to put these words together, these power that I'm rhyming words over music, and it's telling a story, it's getting people hyped, whatever rap did for you. But it's a talent. It's a big talent, because they're making rhymes. They're rhyming words over music and flowing it together perfectly. But not only did it do that, hip hop bred merchandise. So then we turned Gucci popping. Gucci, we didn't own Gucci, but we turned it popping. Popping. Gucci is an Italian company. Louis Vuitton. What is Louis Vuitton? Louis Vuitton. That's a French company. We didn't own them shit, but we made it poppin' with our ampness, with our art, with our All right, we put that shit on. A white dude could put on a Louis suit, Gucci suit, it don't get popping. A black dude put on a Gucci suit in the hood, fucking Eric B and Rakim, it's fucking popping. Now these companies are billion-dollar companies off the influence of us. And the back end people knew that the whole time. They knew that they were doing that. It was just why? Here's why you know it's like false. It's something fraudulent in here. So Vlad disrespected Louis Farrakhan, right? And now it's a no-fly zone for Vlad, right? But what about when Vlad disrespects Suge Knight every fucking show, every episode? We let it slide. Think about this, because the reason we let it slide because we don't understand what he's doing. Think about this. Here's how he do it. Vlad will say he'll get somebody on the show that he knows had a problem with Suge Knight back in the day, or Suge Knight had an issue with him. And then he'll speak up Suge Knight. Oh, Suge Knight was, he had Tupac, he had Dr. Dre, he had Snoop. He could have did it all, but he fell. But he fell off. And he keeps beating that into your head over and over and over, that he fell off. Suge Knight could have been huge, but he fell off. That's communication, because check this out. Culture vulture, and it's not what you think. He don't care about the money because he's getting paid by people you don't even know about. Why? Because Suge Knight could have been a cultural icon in the black community. Suge Knight, Dame Dash, Irv Gotti, and Jay Prince wanted to get together. Everyone should know this story by now. They wanted to do black distribution media and put it together. Soon after that, all of them got raided by the feds, dismantled. You see what happened. You see what happened between all of them. Suge Knight in prison right now, whatever. He was going through some shit. He ran over homeboy. He's in prison, but he was going through some shit way before that. And he probably had some of that shit he deserved. But we're talking about cultural icons. Irv Gotti dismantled. Jay Prince still down there doing his thing, but probably not talking that same shit he was when he wanted to do the black distribution. Dame Dash, we know what happened to Dame Dash. But it's no coincidence that all of them got the feds put on them. There's no coincidence. Now, who would want Suge Knight's story to always look like this? Always. The same people who wanted to kill Suge Knight in the 90s are the same people paying Vlad, probably behind the scenes, to make sure Suge Knight's story don't ever be popping. Because you can never have a black leader. So it's not, why did Farrakhan trigger you? Why did it wait till Farrakhan? Vlad been shitting on black people forever. He talks about, oh, FBG Duck, mom, I'm sorry, I'm sorry this happened, blah, blah, blah. But you promoted FBG Duck on his shit. You promoted the other side also. You fucking had all the people that was warring in Chicago, but what did that do? That made them boys in Chicago like, damn, so-and-so got on Vlad talking this killer gangster shit, so that's what I gotta do. I gotta talk this killer gangster shit too. I gotta turn what he did to get on Vlad, I gotta turn it up to times 2 to get on Vlad. That's what the little dudes think. The older dudes think, oh, I gotta get my story out. I gotta tell what really happened to Death Row back in the day. And they think they're going on Vlad to tell what really happened to Death Row. While Vlad is interjecting every time the story goes this way, Vlad will interject with some shit that make the black guy look like that. Pay attention. You just have to watch, because he's not gonna say it outright like, damn, Suge Knight's an asshole. He's gonna say, damn, he had it all. but he's in jail now, and he might do a little snicker, ha ha ha, little laugh, and the people that he's interviewing might be like, yeah, death row could have been everything, and the millions of people watching subconsciously, that black empire known as death row has just been crumbled subconsciously with communications. The pen is mightier than the sword, y'all boys. So they done tried to kill Suge. They done tried to arrest him plenty of time. He ended up fucking himself and going to prison. Rest in peace to the person involved. But now the same people who wanted him done in the 90s, are the same people who wanted him done today. The same people who's gonna make sure the new platforms in YouTube, there's not no fucking me. There's not no just a regular dude in a fucking apartment talking on YouTube. This is a culture creator. He's creating the culture. And he did that long time before Louis Farrakhan. He's been dissing us a long time. He uses us, but he subconsciously, through communication, plays us all the time. All the time. DJ Academics. Well, sometimes I like DJ Academics. I respect what DJ Academics. So I'm gonna stick on Vlad. Maybe I'll talk about DJ Academics another time. But this Chicago shit, Vlad helped that Chicago shit go out. So then, like, FBG Duck's mom is talking, telling how a record label could have killed, or somebody could have put a hit out on her son, probably pertaining to a record company, which people have always said. All right. So when Vlad talks to her, he's like, oh yeah, I'm sorry, you experienced this X, Y, and Z. You experienced this 1, 2, or 3 times before. No, she's never experienced this, because FBG Duck was probably the only one of her kids that got hit by a record label. So no, don't say you experienced this before. She's never experienced this. But through communication, what he tried to do is change her narrative and take it to something else, some gang shit, instead of some record label shit. So that's what I say. The people on the back end know what's going on. But why do they allow it to happen? How can they say that they're our leaders and they allow shit like this to happen forever? These record companies prey on our people. These record deals prey on our people. This industry preys on our people. Other people get rich from it. Billions of dollars rich. We don't get rich. We get killed when we want our masters. We get killed when we do anything in this industry. But we fuel the industry. And our leaders know this. So they're not really our leaders. They're hurting us through an industry and making money off of us while we go through this industry. They're not really our leaders. They're not really our friends. It's the same in the Snyder Cut movement. They're hurting us to do X, Y, and Z for them when they need us, and they're going to benefit off of it. And we're going to be like, whoa, what just happened? It's the same shit in the music industry. So we didn't know what Vlad was doing. We don't know what he's doing. He's doing this shit through communication. It's not about the money. It's really not about the money. He's changing history with this shit. He's saying, oh, Tupac got shot by gangsters. Let me bring one of the gangsters on the show, 2 or 3 of the gangsters, so they can corroborate what I just said. But he's not going to say, oh shit, Tupac been having death attempts on his life. Before he was born, while he was in his mama's stomach, they've been trying to kill Tupac. Who been trying to kill Tupac? Probably the entertainment industry. So when he brings the gangsters on his show to corroborate his narrative, he's gonna oh yeah, forget these conspiracy theories. Here's the people that shot Tupac. Tupac has been shot before. People get shot and survive every day. But do they get shot, go to the hospital, and probably get... So What I'm saying is the same shit that happened on Godfather. When they shot up the house, they shot up Godfather. He went to the hospital to protect his father because he knew they didn't kill him and they will be coming to the hospital to kill him. Right? So the people that shot up the Godfather's house get interviewed on Vlad and like, oh yeah, we did it. We shot up the Godfather's house. It was us. No, but the story was much deeper than that. It was a boss hit, mob hits. The bosses did it. The people who pulled the trigger, they were just the people who pulled the trigger. And the people behind the scenes, the Jews and the Muslims know this. But why do we, so if we going up into the fucking rap game, it's like, I don't know, it's like a unsaid rule that you kind of have to be like Muslim, you know? You don't eat pork, you don't do this, you don't do that. Not to shit on them boys, because I know I got a lot of few friends. Well, I'm not gonna do like that. I got some friends that's Muslim. I'm saying I'm not gonna shit on nobody, but I'm just saying this. All of the praying that this huge industry has been filtering us to, we have been little mice being filtered to be preyed on. Both sides knew that. So we got triggered when Vlad said something about Farrakhan because they said he was our black leader, and Vlad is not supposed to talk to our black leaders that way. But Vlad always talks to our black leaders that way. Y'all just don't understand it. We don't understand it. And that's why I'm saying we've been losing, we've been getting killed, we've been getting preyed upon, we've been making billion-dollar companies for other people. People probably right now is driving through somewhere in California in $1 million fucking mansion, millions of dollar mansion off of Suge Knight royalties that he owned in death row. Some white person is probably owning them. Some Jewish person is probably owning them. Right now, to this day, all them boys shit that they had, somebody else is probably making money off of it, living, retiring their kids, putting their kids through big schools, influencing laws with lobbies off of the art that some black person did who was not a Jew or a Muslim. And if we say this, now they're gonna jump on my ass. Oh, Peely, you said too much. You said no, because they want this pyramid scheme to stay. They don't want nobody to come and tell you what the pyramid scheme is, because then the pyramid scheme is gonna fall. So they don't allow me into the industry. They blackball me out the industry. They don't want me in the industry because I will tell the truth. But check this out. Our leaders should be telling the truth to the people, because once we understand this, like my dog said on Urban Politics, once we understand the truth in the age of information, now we are all aware of the truth and we can proceed differently. We can move differently. Now we can be Kanye's and be billionaires because we own some of our shit, you know? It's the same thing with everything like that. UFC fighting, all the fighters were standing up, punching. The Gracie brothers came in and taught jiu-jitsu, gave the UFC information, and now everyone knows jiu-jitsu. Everyone learned. Everyone now has to fight and at least know jiu-jitsu before you're gonna fight. It's the same thing Kanye is doing, the same thing I'm doing, the same thing our leaders did not do. So if our leaders didn't help us out, they were preying on us. And if our leaders had us losing, were they really our leaders? That's the point. I ain't shitting on nobody. You ask yourself that. Let's just go deep. You ask yourself that. If the coach on your football team, you have lost for the past 40 years, they will fire the coach. Black people, we have lost for the last 40 years. because we are being preyed upon by somebody else behind the scenes. And our leaders know this, because our leaders be quiet because they get cut in on the back end of the preying upon. They get cut in on these shit. So these companies like Spotify and blah, 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 they start and they're like, oh, we're going to give you this amount of money. We're corporate and we're going to give you this amount of money and we're going to do this. But where did that money come from originally? Oh, it's a tech company. We come from this, that. No, where did that money come from? Money don't just be birth. Like white people have had not to say it, but white people has had a head start on getting money in this country. Jewish people have had a head start on getting money in this country. So they have learned how to make companies to continue getting money. And they do it by giving us a little amount of money, which we think is a lot of money, but it's not a lot of money compared to what we're doing. And it's like a few million when we make so much more in everything we do, from merch, style, dance, cars, blah, blah, blah. And they give you a little bit of money because they say, the little bit of money is just going to get you exposure, but you're going to get a little bit of money and a little bit of exposure, and you're going to put them together and you're going to become a star. But no, you don't become a star. You become an advertising little puppet to keep advertising. Then they put a Lamborghini in your video, another Italian company. Then they put you with Gucci on, another Italian company. Then they put some Louis on, a French company. Then they put these little Instagram models in here, which are exotic from another fucking country. None of your shit, none of your Bobby Smurder right on the block in Brooklyn with all niggas around him. You know, that's what if you want to talk about some shit, Tekashi 6ix9ine. So Tekashi 6ix9ine, let's talk about this right now, and I'm gonna tell you this. I'm gonna break it down. I'm gonna end this shit. Tekashi 6ix9ine was a little dude who infiltrated a big rap group, a big gang group in New York, who was trying to rap and get on. Tekashi 6ix9ine infiltrated them with a camera. He did not have good raps at the time. He said, yeah, I know my raps suck, but my visuals are the shit. Infiltrated them, a gang. A few years later, did a bunch of shit with them, eventually got them all locked up, snitched on all of them. And they were like, oh, Tekashi 6ix9ine was a snitch. Was he a snitch or was he a fed from the beginning? Was he a little narc kid, fed from the jump? Already had feds with him, already had a rape charge, infiltrated a fucking gang in New York and brought them down. He only played like he was a rapper. He only is acting like he was a rat. He was a fucking hip hop cop from day one. But our need to be on camera, our need to be in front and be popular was their downfall. And it's happened right after Bobby Smurder. Bobby Smurder was a whole different group, GS9. The rap industry got involved in that and brought them down. Why though? Maybe Brooklyn is being gentrified. Maybe they need to be off the streets. Maybe they don't need GS9 on the streets, and maybe they didn't need Tekashi's people on the streets. Treyway them boys. You know? So what do? They gave them something. They gave them Vlad. They gave them 6ix9ine. They gave them a camera. They gave them a platform. And they said, yo, go hang yourself. And that's what they do. And for the people that they want to hang continuously, like Suge Knight, they just continuously hang them on Vlad. So now, Treyway, GS9 is, you know, I don't know what happened to them. Like if they were hindered, you know, what they went through, I know it probably hurt. But they had rappers, well, not GS9, but I know Treyway did. already in the game. People were already making money off them, and they were planning on making money off Tekashi. Tekashi had other plans. But the huge scope is gentrification. It's more, let's use Jay-Z to get the Barclays in Brooklyn. And the Barclays are owned by a white family of conglomerate white people. Let's use Jay-Z to get the Brooklyn Nets and KD and all his people. We're gonna give him a little bit of money and KD a shoe deal for $300 million, but we're gonna take over Brooklyn. Didn't they say this in the song, We're Taking Over One City at a Time? Didn't Akon say that? Maybe they were telling you the truth. The leaders know this. I'm not just making this up. The leaders know this. The YouTubers now coming up, the content creators need to know this also, because the content creators is the next industry. So if the content creators know what I'm saying right now, before these people prey on you, before these people get on you, you already know what time it is, because I told you. Go deep, yeah, bitch.
One world currency.
The New World Order.
Those are the roots of trouble.
I imagine that right now you're feeling a bit like Alice, tumbling down the rabbit hole. Let me tell you why you're here. You're here because you know something. What you know you can't explain, but you feel it. You felt it your entire life. That there's something wrong with the world. You don't know what it is, but it's there, like a splinter in your mind, driving you mad. It is this feeling that has brought you to me. This is your last chance. After this, there is no turning back. You take the blue pill, the story ends. You wake up in your bed and believe whatever you want to. You take the red pill, you stay in Wonderland, and I show you how deep the rabbit hole goes. All I'm offering is the truth, nothing more.
For we are opposed around the world by a monolithic and ruthless conspiracy that relies primarily on covert means for expanding its sphere of influence, on infiltration instead of invasion, on subversion instead of elections, on intimidation instead of free choice, on guerrillas by night instead of armies by day. It is a system which has conscripted vast human and material resources into the building of a tightly knit, highly efficient machine that combines military, diplomatic, intelligence, economic, scientific, and political operations. Its preparations are concealed, not published. Its mistakes are buried, not headlined. Its dissenters are silenced, not praised. No expenditure is questioned, no rumor is printed, no secret is revealed. But I am asking your help in the tremendous task of informing and alerting the American people.
And now, welcome to another episode of Down the Rabbit Hole. Here's your host from federaljack.com. It's Popeye.
The universe works in mysterious ways because it's very fitting for what's going on in this country right now. The racial divide that's being pushed by the powers that shouldn't be to create division. I talked about the King Alfred plan a couple weeks ago. I played Mae Brussels' broadcast. I've talked about the racial divide and how we have to get past it and get through this. Well, tonight I'm going to be airing an interview I did exposing the FBI's war on Tupac Shakur and other black leaders. People like Jimi Hendrix, Mumia. You probably don't know who Mumia is. You'll learn Mumia Abu-Jamal. I'm not lionizing anybody. I'm trying to show you what happened and the reality of the situation, and then help you understand why they would do this. Why the FBI wanted them so bad. Why they wanted to shut them down. Why it was important. It's a good book. It's a really good book. Author John Potash. He's got another one out about drugs in American culture. I got to have him back on. I got to get him on about his second book, but I want to pick his brain a little bit more about this first one. You need to read this book. Who cares about Tupac Shakur, Popeye? Well, you should, because there's more to his story than what meets the eye and what you've been told. He wasn't just some dirtbag gangster rapper. I know that's what you've been told. I know that's what a lot of people would like to believe. But that's not the full story. There's more to it. They went after Hendrix, too. Same people that killed Martin Luther King Jr. They did it for a reason. They did it to subvert black culture. Where do you think crack came from? Freeway Ricky Ross has talked about this. He introduced crack. Why? Because the CIA helped him. Couldn't bring coke to the ghettos. Nobody could afford coke. It was a rich white man's drug back in the 80s. So how do you get the ghetto, people in the ghetto, so to speak, addicted to this new drug to fund black operations and to help bring black culture even further down? Because that's what they were trying to do. So how do you do that? Oh, well, you create a drug that you can sell to somebody for $5 a rock. So this isn't a new subject. This isn't something that should be surprising to anybody. And after hearing the interview with John tonight, I guarantee you'll at least have a whole new outlook on the death of Tupac and a lot of these other cases, including Mumia Abu-Jamal. He's in jail right now, supposedly for killing a cop. We get into that too, and how that was a whole setup. There was a few other activists that they went after. Regardless of whether or not you believe in the politics of that individual, it's not okay for any activist to be targeted. Doesn't matter if you agree with their politics or not, because if they can be targeted for their beliefs, you can be targeted for yours. Just remember that. It works both ways, ladies and gentlemen. It's very important to remember these things. So tonight, sit back, get a glass of wine, whatever your poison of choice is, a beer, whatever. Perhaps you live in a state where medical cannabis is, or either you have medical cannabis or you have recreational cannabis available to you, then break that out. Take some notes. Get a pad, get a pen. Take some notes. Write John's name down. Go pick up his book, which we're gonna talk about during the interview. You'll hear me plug it a few times. Pick up his book, okay, and go and read it and learn a little bit about history. And you can just Google the book. The full title of the book is The FBI War on Tupac Shakur and Black Leaders. U.S. Intelligence's Murderous Targeting of Tupac, MLK, Malcolm, Panthers, Hendrix, Marley, rappers, and linked ethnic leftists. It's a very detailed book, and there's a movie John put together. It's on YouTube that goes along with it. I think it's a little over an hour, hour and a half, something like that, maybe 2 hours. It's really like you need to watch the movie and read the book to have a bit of a better understanding. He spent years researching this book, ladies and gentlemen. Years. There is tons of time put into this research. So you can't just go through this. I know America likes to have things answered for them in like 3.5 seconds. Well, who killed Tupac? Popeye, can you tell me in one sentence or less? No, I can't. Because if I say the FBI did it, you're going to say, well, then why did they do it? Right? So you're going to have all these follow-up questions to try to understand the full picture, right? So instead of that, just sit back, listen to the interview with John tonight, and then go get his book and go watch the video that he put out as like a compendium to the book. Your eyes will be wide open, and it'll help you understand what's going on to this very day right now with all this racism that's being pushed in the media and by the government and this division and separation amongst the citizens themselves. This is all interconnected, ladies and gentlemen. It's important to know this stuff. Anyway, here we go. Author John Potash on the FBI War on Tupac Shakur. Ladies and gentlemen, tonight I have a very special guest on the broadcast. I am pleased to be bringing to the airwaves another author and independent researcher whose work I recently stumbled upon, quite by accident while doing some research, and I have to say I was blown away by the amount and the depth of his research. Over 12 years went into researching his book that he's put out, and we're going to be discussing tonight, and I'm just honored to have him on as a guest. We're going to be talking about his book. It's titled The FBI War on Tupac Shakur and Black Leaders. It's by author and investigative researcher John Potash, and tonight we are going to pick his brain and get into this topic. We are going to cover something that I've been discussing a lot here on the broadcast, which is the black community was targeted and it was taken down from the level that it was at by this very same people that control the whole very grand chessboard, as Brzezinski put it, right? So anyway, we're going to get into this. There's so much to get into. I don't want to waste any more time. I want to bring my guest right up. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. John Potash. John, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me on, Popeye.
First and foremost, let me say thank you so much for getting back to me when I reached out to you.
Sure.
And being willing to come on the broadcast. It's just, this is a super important topic, and honestly, I don't know many people that know about it as much as you do. I saw a couple interviews that you had done, and I reached out and I got your book from you. And I honestly, this is, I don't give compliments unless they're due. Your level of research, this isn't like you wrote a book and it's full of just chapters of conjecture. I mean, you really did your research. There's a ton of evidence in there to back up what you're saying. So this is something that's very near and dear to the broadcast. So first and foremost, just for the listeners and for myself and for people that appreciate truth and education and enlightenment, thank you for spending so many years researching a topic that people would have thought was, something stupid to talk. Oh, Tupac Shakur, really? What do you think? It's a conspiracy theory? Oh, blah, 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 blah. And they blow it off and, rap wars and gangsters and killing each other, and that's it. And they don't think there's anything to it. But actually, there is, and your work exposes that. So let's get right into it. I want to pick your brain a little bit. First and foremost, what got you into all this? I mean, like I said, this isn't a normal topic for somebody to delve into and then do as much research as you have. So what got you into this?
Well, my ancestry includes people that were connected to, some family members being lost in the Holocaust. And so I was sensitive to oppression in general. And then I was working as a addictions counselor in Baltimore City, and I saw what was going on with drugs in society and how what I believe was that drugs were being used as a weapon against us, which is the title of my next book. And so as I was researching, I was actually I had written a short story based on this that somebody published in Baltimore, and then people thought I should turn it into a novel. And so I was researching a novel, and I was using one of the people I was counseling in Baltimore as a character in my novel, because he said my father was a Black Panther killed by the police. And so I was researching the Panthers, came across the leading New York Panthers, the Shakurs, when I moved to Washington, D.C., and the Washington Post said another strange twist. The same police officers that showed up at at Tupac's shooting in the New York recruiting studio lobby when he was shot about 3 or 4 times were the same cops that immediately shown up across town at his purported sexual assault scene a year earlier. And the Washington Post writer just said there's been many strange accents like this and twists in the case and police actions. And so I called up Tupac's New York trial lawyer, Michael Warren, said, do you think they're targeting him like they targeted his parents, meaning the FBI's counterintelligence program? And he said, yes, and nobody's writing about it. So I said, well, I'm a freelance writer. I'm going to submit it to one of these national progressive magazines, which he knew of course, because he's an activist lawyer. And so he gave me about an hour, 2-hour interview about what I was that theme of a new co-intelligence program against Tupac and rappers. And so we talked about that. I got all that. I could only publish an article in a local magazine, though. None of the other magazines were ready to accept something like this at that time. And so it took another about 3 or 4 years before Covert Action Quarterly accepted this expanded version of this article after I published it in 1995 before Tupac died in a local Washington magazine. And so after he died and I got that article in Covert Action Quarterly, his people close to him opened up in a much huger way because they all really respected Covert Action Quarterly. It was started by CIA whistleblower Phil Agee and some great activists. So after that, I had just loads of research, and I just kept working. I kept working part-time and researching. I took a tangent, I got away from my political novel and got into the FBI, this theme, the FBI war on Tupac Shakur and black leaders. And from, about 98 until I put it out in 2007, it was just solid, hardcore researching of it. In between my regular work as a counselor and publishing some other articles, in which I did get some articles in some national magazines, national progressive magazines, but they still weren't, again, it was not all those magazines were ready to accept the Tupac idea. But so in late 2007, I finally put out this book, and I'd done a Freedom of Information Act request, which took 2 years to get the results of. But after the first year, when they finally responded to me, they leaked to me. Somebody at the Justice Department said, "I'm not supposed to tell you how many pages are in there," but upon further conversation, she did leak that there was over 4,000 pages in Tupac Shakur's FBI file. And so I paid for all those pages. She said you have to pay 10 cents a page. They sent me a bill for $415 I think that was the exact amount, but I sent them the money and for over 4,000 pages to be copied, and they only sent me 99 pages, and they said for national security reasons. And even though some of those 99 pages were deleted and blacked out and redacted and all, but I did get some information out of those 99 pages, though. After I got the 99 pages, about maybe 2 or 3, 4 years later, they released it to the public, highly redacted still, of course. But they never released the other 3,900 pages, and I talked to another lawyer about suing them to get the rest of the 3,900 plus pages, and he said it's going to cost a few $1,000s just for the first stage of it. So I was not a wealthy man at that point. I couldn't afford that. So, but I did so much research during that time that to have the 1,000 endnotes for these facts in my book, I collected thousands of pages of government documents that included CIA documents I got from different activists, court documents from some of his trials, court documents from his parents' trials, and hundreds of books and articles that I, mostly mainstream books and articles and eyewitness accounts, and did over 100 interviews to get eyewitness accounts of some of these attacks on Tupac, which were a number of murder attempts on him before he died. There was approximately 5 attempts to kill him before he died, and I show how they were all connected to U.S. intelligence in different ways. Mostly some were at police hands, some were police trying to cover up the attacks, etc.
And it's just amazing when I actually looked into this that Tupac, as crazy as this may sound to the average layman listener, but him, his family, and all this, there is this connection going, to the Black Panthers, and going all the way back to the CointelPro stuff the FBI was doing back in the 60s, to Martin Luther King Jr., to Malcolm X, to Jimi Hendrix. My jaw hit the floor. I was like, oh my God, John, you've literally connected and it's not you've just shown the connection. Actually, it's not that you've sit there and created the connection. You just kind of blown the dust off of the ground and said, look, there's a line from point A to point Z, and it intersects all these different events, throughout 50, 60 years. So obviously there's an agenda going on, and there's a reason for this. So I guess we should go back to the beginning, right? To try to, since it does. I mean, as crazy again to the listeners this may sound, Tupac Shakur, Black Panthers. What are you talking about? No, this is all true, ladies and gentlemen. Again, John, thank you to your work, because I knew that Tupac was a revolutionary, but I had no idea. I actually learned from your research that this was actually a plan. What he was doing was actually a plan to try to bring back the black culture to what it was once headed towards and where it once was with leaders like Martin Luther King Jr. And a lot of people are going to be like, what? Tupac was a thug. You'll get my meaning after reading John's book, which, again, I urge you to pick up. It's The FBI War on Tupac Shakur and Black Leaders. In fact, before we get into it, I want you to plug really quick where they can pick up the book, because I always urge the listener to get a physical copy, and it's really important that they're going to listen to this. I want them to listen to this interview a couple times and then be able to go back to the book and then, go back and forth, make the information sink in. So where can they pick up a physical copy of your book?
They can buy it from Amazon easily. If they want a physical copy, and it's they've got to go to an independent bookstore and ask them if they can order it. But you can also buy it online from Amazon. But you can find out more about the book and the links to buying the book and the film based on the book. It's about an 85-minute film based on the book with the same title at my website, FBIWarOnTupac.com, and it's got the links to different places where you can buy it. If you'd rather not buy it from Amazon, you could buy it from AK Press or Black. It's called African World Books. Also sells it, though it's harder to buy it online from African World. You might have to call them and order it that way. But it's pretty easy to just type in FBI War on Tupac and the Amazon link will come up in a moment. But basically, to make people understand, Tupac was only pretending to be a gangster. Had this gangster facade in order to appeal to gangs and politicize them. So that's not who he really was. He was really a intellectual prodigy from his teenage years on. He had, Professor Michael Eric Dyson documented in his book about Tupac that Tupac had read hundreds and hundreds of PhD level books before he was out of his teen years. And that's why he had so many words at the tip of his tongue and could write so incredibly prolifically that hundreds, of songs would come out after he died at the age of 25. He'd have, 5 to 10 more top 10 albums coming out after he was dead. So his mother raised him, as what she called the Black Prince of the Revolution. She raised him to be that way. And his mother, Fanny, was a one-time leader of the Harlem Black Panthers, which was over 1,000 membership strong. And so the Shakur family is an amazing family. It goes all the way actually back to Sayuddin Abba Shakur, who was a member of Marcus Garvey's group, the United Negro Improvement Association, which Malcolm X's father was part of. So Malcolm X knew that when he came to New York, he had Sayuddin Abba Shakur be one of his close advisors and close associates in the Organization of African American Unity. And then, so Sayuddin Abba Shakur had two biological sons, which were Lumumba Shakur and Zaid Shakur. And they joined Malcolm X's group. And when Malcolm X was assassinated, the Black Panthers from Oakland, when they came over to New York to look for leadership to take over, to start Black Panther groups in Harlem and the Bronx, they immediately went to the Shakurs. And Lumumba Shakur founded the Harlem Black Panthers, and Lumumba's close friend, Sekou Odinga, started the Bronx Black Panthers with Zaid Shakur as the Minister of Information for the Bronx Black Panthers. And Afeni Shakur, Tupac's mother, when she joined the Harlem Black Panthers, Lumumba instantly recognized this incredible intellect and fiery, passionate political woman, and married her. And that's why when he went to jail, the Black Panthers decided that she was going to be a spokeswoman. She was supposed to be in jail with him as part of the Panther 21 that were framed up. But Panther 21 asked that she get bail first to be a spokeswoman for the group. And then the Black Panther leadership elected her as the temporary leader of the Black Panthers while the rest were in jail. And so then she got pregnant with another Black Panther while she was out of jail. They were actually in jail for 2 straight years. So they call it the longest trial in New York's history. So she got pregnant with another Black Panther, and that was Tupac's father. And Lumumba divorced her. But when they went to trial, she actually represented herself as her own attorney and was credited with getting all of the Panthers off when that huge frame-up. Tupac was born about a month after that, after they got out of jail, after they were acquitted. And she went on to speak at Yale and Harvard and got honorariums all over the country to speak, about what all that happened in New York, because it was big in the press. Several books, including a Nobel Prize-winning book, were written about that trial. But so Tupac grew up in that kind of environment with that kind of mother. And she ended up actually moving in with Lumumba's adopted brother, Mutulu Shakur, a few years later. And Mutulu Shakur was an incredible acupuncturist who was also an incredible political activist, was a co-founder of the Republic of New Africa in Detroit, which is another national group that was in solidarity with the Panthers. And so that's what, the way Tupac grew up. And by the time he was about 17 or 18 years old, he was elected the youngest ever leader of the New African Panthers, which was the young adult group of the New African People's Organization. And the New African People's Organization was made up of former Republic of New Africa members and Black Panthers. And it was a great national group, but it was the older generation. So Tupac's generation was at that point was the ages of the New African Panthers were the ages of about 15 to 30, same age as the Black Panthers when they started. And they elected Tupac, their leader it was about 1988, 1989. And he stayed in that leadership position for at least a year, according to his national lawyer, Chokwe Lumumba, who was the head of the New African People's Organization, and his manager, Watani Tayihimba, who was was the founding national security director for National New African People's Organization, which they called NAPO. So he also was funding the leadership of this revolutionary group. And when I say revolutionary, I mean they were trying to change society for the better for the 99% of us. They weren't they didn't stock guns and try to do anything violent. They were just trying to change society for the better in any way they could. And Chokwe Lumumba was an incredible leader and actually took a different tactic just in the past few years and became mayor of Jackson, Mississippi, but then died within about 10 months of becoming mayor. But he was widely loved in Jackson. So nonetheless, Tupac was had left the New African Panthers, got a record deal, and about 3 days after his MTV Worldwide release of the political song Trapped, police stopped him for jaywalking, choked him unconscious, and beat his head against the curb. And I show evidence of other cases where people died in police custody from those tactics. Then there was another incident where he was attacked, but a third incident was in Marin City where police watched strangers hit him for no reason and then shoot at him. And they only arrested him and not the strangers. And then Atlanta police, who were supposedly off duty, ran over to Tupac's car, smashed his window, and shot him in 1993. Around that same time, around 1993, about a few weeks later after that, there was a frame up for sexual assault, which all the evidence is in my book for how it was a frame up, but you can also see the evidence in my film. And Tupac only got convicted. He got found not guilty of all major charges: sodomy, attempted sodomy, assisting attempted sodomy. He only got convicted for touching this woman's butt against her will, and for that he got 1.5 to 4.5 years in jail. And the guy, the undercover agent, Haitian Jacques Ignant, people might know him by Haitian Jack in one of Tupac's songs. Tupac said knew he was working for the feds, set me up and wet me up. And he set him up for that sexual assault scene, and he then wet him up by having an associate shoot Tupac 3 times in the New York recording studio lobby just before the verdict of the trial came out. The jury, came to their verdict, and because basically, I argue that the prosecutors thought they were losing their case. They actually offered Tupac a mistrial, and Tupac said, "No, I'm not going to accept a mistrial. I want to clear my name. I did not do anything here." And that night before the jury came to that verdict, a guy who in the last few years admitted that he was paid by James Henchman Rosemont to shoot Tupac, to rob him, shoot him. 2 bullets went through Tupac's skull and barely missed his brain, according to the doctor's affidavit, which I have reprinted in my book. I have just a copy of it in my book. And so he was miraculous that he survived, but that was another murder attempt. And Kathy Scott, award-winning Las Vegas Sun reporter, has in her book about Biggie Smalls that she interviewed the security guard at the recording studio where Tupac was shot, and he said he had it all on videotape, these gunmen, and he offered it to the police, and the police turned it down and closed the case. So that's just some of the massive evidence about police foul play around that. So
and these tactics, by the way, aren't new, because if you look back in time, I mean, this happened with multiple different people. You had Mumia. He got set up the same way, right? A lot of people.
Yeah.
He for people that don't know who I'm talking about Mumia Abu Jamal. He's on the books. They convicted him of killing a police officer. Yeah, it's this when you look into what happened that night, and you do your research, and again, John's work exposes a lot of this stuff. And again, your research is one of those. Your book is a key, John. It is really a key, because you can research all of this stuff into Mumia, into Tupac, all of this, Huey Newton, all of it. And when you look into these cases, you might, some people might not be able to still put it together. They might say, I still can't buy that it's all connected. And your research and your work is the glue. It binds everything together. I mean, it shows you they did this to Huey, they did it to Mumia, they tried doing it to Tupac.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's why I subtitled my book, U.S. Intelligence's Murders Targeting of Tupac, MLK, Malcolm, Panthers, Hendrix, Marley, Rappers, and Linked Ethnic Leftists, because when I go through the history of Tupac Shakur's family from Salahuddin Abba Shakur on up, it overlaps with tactics and personnel in the assassinations of Malcolm X and Martin Luther King. With Malcolm X, an undercover agent was the first to arrive. A guy named Eugene Roberts was the first to arrive at Malcolm's body right after the shooting. And in the same thing happened with Martin Luther King. The first person to arrive at Martin Luther King's body, according to attorney William Pepper, who was a friend of Martin Luther King's, he was a white lawyer who teaches at Oxford, actually. And he said that he researched the case for about 25 years and found that undercover agent was signaling the backup shooters that the assassination was successful and they can stand down. And that was his job, to make sure the assassination was successful. And I argue it was the same job of Eugene Roberts with Malcolm X. So, and I show, of course, a lot more evidence than just that. But Eugene Roberts then followed the Shakurs from Malcolm X's group into the Panthers, and then tried to set up and frame the Black Panthers, including Afeni Shakur, Tupac's mother. And they came out in court and said, I am an agent, and this was my, and here's what I found that these guys were doing. So it's, there is links between all these different, assassinations. And as you brought up with Mumia and Huey Newton, in Atlanta, I argue that they used psychological profiling by beating up a black man right within eyesight of Tupac when his car is coming by. And then as soon as he rolled down his window and said, what's going on, they ran over and attacked him. And psychological profiling has been used against activists, and in a lot of different ways, but partly against activists since the 1970s. So they basically do a profile that says, if you set up this situation, there's a 99% chance here's how he'll react, or a huge percentage chance that here's how he'll react. And with Tupac, they thought he could possibly get out of the car, and they could easily shoot him and just say it was in self-defense. But he didn't get out of his car. He just rolled down his window, said what's going on, and rolled his window back up. And that's when they came over his car, and they had to break his window, according to the eyewitnesses, and shoot at him. And Tupac, luckily, didn't get hit, rolled out of his car, according to eyewitnesses, grabbed the gun and security guard's car behind him and shot back. And he shot these white police officers 3 or 4 times in the butt and legs, and he got off completely. And the reason he got off completely, I argue, is because, for one, they used a gun stolen from their own police evidence locker. And in another court case, I showed the testimony of a police officer saying we call that a throwaway gun, that if you do an illegal shooting, you put it down so it won't be traced back to you. So that, of course, was another assassination attempt. And there's more evidence than that, but of course you have to see the film and book on the more evidence. But so with Huey Newton, they did the same thing. They attacked a black man in the apartment living next to Huey Newton in about 1971 or 2. They attacked him And then Huey Newton heard that at 5 a.m. outside his door, and he decided, I'm not going to go out there, because this could be a setup. And that's what it was. It turns out he found out that the FBI was renting the apartment next to him, and that black man was working, was set up there as part of that. So, with Mumia, it's the same thing in terms of they started beating his brother within earshot of Mumia. Mumia comes over to see what's going on, why they're beating his brother, and he gets shot. And another gunman said, my job, I was a contract killer, and he signed an affidavit to the fact that I was contracted to shoot that police officer who they say Mumia shot. And he says, and I shot him, and apparently someone else, a black man with dreadlocks, was, I guess, also contracted, he said in an affidavit. He passed 2 polygraph tests saying this. He came over and also shot that police officer and then ran away. So it was, that was clearly a setup of Mumia to either kill him there or set him up for the death penalty for shooting a police officer thereafter.
And again, that's because they were influential activists.
Right.
I hate the word radical. I want to say /radicals, but I hate that word because again, it's just a label, and it's got such a pejorative, negative aura attached to it now.
You could say great activists for the 99% of us. That's what Huey Newton was, co-founder of the Black Panther Party. But he modeled activism for the Young Lords, the Latino version of the Black Panthers, and the American Indian movement made their programs modeled after the Black Panther programs. They've said that, and so a lot of ethnic groups followed the lead of the Black Panthers. And Mumia was a minister of information for the Black Panthers of Philadelphia at about the age of 15 or 16. He was incredibly, a young prodigy of an activist. And then by the time, in the 70s, he had written articles for the Yale Law Journal. He had been on NPR. He had a great radio voice. He was a brilliant guy. And so they set him up, sadly enough.
And they do this all the time. Now, I've asked different researchers over the years why they targeted the black community, and on the outset, it just looks like, oh, well, they're white guys, they're racist, they just don't like black people. But I don't think it's as simple as that. I think, it's much deeper. It's about segmenting every section of society into small little groups. So you get black people in a little group, Latinos, Asians, white people, and then they can target each individual group with propaganda and control techniques and methods that are suited for each group. You know what I mean?
Yeah, a lot of divide and conquer. That's an old but steady strategy of the most powerful. And so, I argue in my next book that this was a oligarchy that was founded off of the opium trade. The British and American opium traders, they made huge amounts of money with the British East India Company, and then with the opium wars against China, and then these secret societies like Skull and Bones and all the other Ivy League schools were used that huge amounts of money off the opium trade to create trust foundations and trust funds that they gave money to each graduate of Skull and Bones and all those other secret societies. Like for Skull and Bones, for example, they got an average of $250,000 when they graduated, early in the day when that group first started. And so they started out with huge amounts of money. They also had all different other kinds of ways of interconnections, and they were intermarried. And they started, these were the Rockefellers, the Harrimans, Julius Pierpont Morgan, the Carnegies, all them. And they founded in the early 1900s the eugenics movement, which was incredibly hateful and murderous towards literally all ethnic groups. Even the Irish and the Italians, and they said huge percentage of them were defective and should be sterilized. And they literally had the law on about 25 on the books on 25 states in the country. So this was an incredibly bigoted oligarchy, and they actually put, if you look at Edwin Black's work, and he's a Los Angeles Times syndicated columnist who's won many journalism awards. His book, War Against the Weak, documents all this to the teeth. And he shows how they funded the Nazis, believe it or not. They took eugenics to Germany when Germany was bereft after World War I and funded the rise of the Nazis. So it was, FDR going to the war was almost even a civil war because people like General Smedley Butler said that they even asked him to cause a coup against FDR because they were so upset with him starting all his progressive programs with the New Deal. So this group continues till today. You got the Bushes, the Rockefellers, the JP Morgan's the largest bank in the world right now, according to Forbes magazine. And there's still, you look at the longest wars in our history. It's the Vietnam War and the Afghanistan War. And what's the common denominator there? It's opium. You got the Golden Crescent in Afghanistan, which is the greatest place to grow opium in the world, and you got the Golden Triangle of the Vietnam area, which is the greatest place to grow opium. And they're actually at two ends of the same mountain range that for some reason creates the best environment for growing opium. And it's just incredible amounts of money are made off that opium. That's actually going to be going into detail in my next book called Drugs as Weapons Against Us, which is coming out on Trine Day Press. And it's actually available for preview and pre-order on Amazon and Barnes & Noble right now.
Oh, I was gonna ask you if you had ever hooked up with Trine Day. Chris Milligan's a good guy.
Yeah.
Good publisher. Great. He gives everybody a platform that other publishers would totally ignore. I mean, and he's a guy. I know him. He's actually a really nice guy. And he's smart. He knows his own stuff. So that's cool. You're actually coming out with a second book. What's the working title of it?
Yeah, it's coming out in November, and it's called Drugs as Weapons Against Us, the CIA's murderous targeting of SDS, Panthers, Hendricks, Lenin, Cobain, Tupac, and other leftists.
I'll be getting you back on to discuss that book as well in the future.
Thanks, Popeye. Great.
Without a shadow of a doubt. I mean, it's all connected. Now, I know our time is limited, and I have a litany of things that I want to ask you. So we'll get right. I'll steer it back towards Tupac and the Black Panthers. But all of this, ladies and gentlemen, for the listeners, all this is connected. And I mean, that's why John has to write a second book, because obviously there's so much information you couldn't fit it in between two covers. You're probably going to need 6 or 7 sets of covers to put all this information in. There's more. I tend to find that there's more factual information that'll blow your mind out there than information that sits inside the Encyclopedia Britannica. So that being said, Tupac. All right, now again, people are going to say, all right, you guys have been talking about it. Yeah, there's all this weird stuff. They tried to kill him, the stuff with the police. Okay, fine, they were targeting him. But do you believe that his eventual shooting, his eventual murder, was actually perpetrated by these intelligence agencies and the FBI? Or do you think – okay, well, that answers the question. I personally think it myself too. But, I mean, I know that there's a lot of talk about the East Coast, West Coast rap battles and all that. But again, your work exposes all of that. And actually, that's connected to almost how they had the same thing playing off with the East Coast Black Panthers versus the West Coast Black Panthers back in the day, like trying to have this fake rivalry. And again, it's done, they come in, divide and conquer, and they do the same thing today with 9/11 Truth or any of these other different movements. They come in, they get everybody arguing amongst themselves. There's no consensus of opinion, and then nobody has any power, any leverage to change the general populace's mind, and then the system keeps rolling on with their agenda. That's how they nullify it. Anyway, I'll give you the floor. So the whole East Coast, West Coast rap battle, I guess we could start there. That's actually, again, that's right out of their playbook, right? That goes back to the whole Black Panthers, East Coast, West Coast feud, correct?
Well, with the Panthers, what it was really setting up just different leaders within the Panthers. They were setting up Huey Newton against Eldridge Cleaver when Eldridge Cleaver was exiled in Algeria, and they were setting up, Huey Newton against Stokely Carmichael. They were sending fake letters between the two. They were using undercover agents to spread rumors back and forth. And one of the big setups, though, was manufactured letters between Huey Newton and the Shakurs and the New York Black Panthers when they were in jail. and using undercover agents for the same thing of spreading false information and getting them fighting against each other. Now, Geronimo Pratt had sided with both the New York. Now he was head of the L.A. Panthers, so he actually sided with New York Panthers and Eldridge Cleaver in that feud. So it's not so clearly an East versus West war, but it was a feud between the New York Panthers and the Oakland Panthers in California. So, but the same tactics were used when they set up this East Coast versus West Coast rap war. Tupac versus Biggie. Tupac got anonymous letters in jail saying, "You don't know who set you up. Of course, it was Biggie and Puffy who set up your shooting in that New York recording studio lobby." And then he had all kinds of people in jail telling him, "Oh, everyone knows that Biggie and Puffy set that up." And actually, there really was no evidence to that. But he heard it so many times from so many people with all these letters, and they were messing Tupac's mind up so much in jail with what was called, Amnesty International calls penal coercion tactics. Amnesty International listed all the penal coercion tactics that are used against political prisoners to mess their minds up. I show the evidence how all these were used against Tupac and more. And they really messed his head up, and the purpose was a few. One, to start that East-West versus West rap war in his mind, thinking that Biggie might have set up a shooting. Second was to get him desperate enough to join Death Row Records, and when he did, he told his business manager, "What time you tell you him, I know I'm selling my soul to the devil, but I just got to get out of here." And so there was a few other things besides that, but basically he gets out of jail, and Death Row Records, it turns out, keeps trying to mess Tupac's mind up. Tupac says he's not ever smoking weed again because his head was so messed up from it, and that's part of why he walked into that scene where he got shot in New York, and if he wasn't stoned, he would have realized it was a setup. And so Death Row immediately gives him weed and alcohol constantly, as much as possible, gets him smoking and drinking to keep trying to control him. And as soon as Tupac finished his 3 CD deal for Death Row, he said, "I'm done." He already started his own record company, Euthanasia Records. He already started his own film company. He was going to leave them, and he got into literally physical fights with Suge Knight over the fact that he should be allowed to leave Death Row. His contract was done. So finally, he fired the real head of Death Row Records, Dave Kenner, a mafioso type of lawyer, who actually just represented a number of mafia and represented a number of major players, including Michael Harry O'Harris, who was one of the 2 understudies for Freeway Ricky Ross, that got huge amounts of cheap cocaine from CIA assets in Latin America. The Contras, as part of the CIA Contra crack cocaine situation that was covered on the news and the trials and all that. And so if we found, researchers found out that Death Row Records had dozens of police officers in it. Now, high-level white police detective Russell Poole got himself assigned to the Biggie Smalls murder investigation. Biggie died 6 months after Tupac was shot. And so Russell Poole he found dozens of his fellow police officers at all levels of Death Row Records. And when he went to his superiors and says, "What are they all doing there?" he said the superiors called them, he said, "You can call them troubleshooters or covert agents." So this is coming out of an official investigation that Death Row Records had dozens of police officers who were covert agents, and they were also trafficking drugs and trafficking guns, along with setting up murderous battles between Bloods and Crips who worked inside of Death Row Records. These were the same Bloods and Crips that Tupac and his Black Panther extended family were getting to call peace truces throughout California, and they were turning them into activists. That was part of Tupac pretending to be a gangster, in order to appeal to gangs and politicize them. And he was having success at that, getting gang leaders to meet at gang peace truce picnics, and it was spreading nationwide, and that was a serious threat to the authorities. And that's yet one of a few goals for why they assassinated Tupac, and set up that assassination. And this one of his bodyguards, Kevin Hackey, said he was actually not just working for the police and moonlighting for Death Row Records, but he was also under the pay of the FBI. And I argue, and it's pretty clear, that he turned on the FBI. And Hackey said they threw him in jail for doing what he did. but he basically told Tupac not to go to Las Vegas, said you should go to Atlanta. As soon as Suge Knight and his security director, Reggie Wright Jr., found out about that, they fired Hackey Friday night before the Saturday Mike Tyson fight in Las Vegas, where Tupac was set up and fatally shot. And so, there's a lot and so Russell Poole came to believe that his fellow officers actually set up Biggie Smalls' shooting in order to cover up their murder of Tupac Shakur and make it look like an East Coast versus West Coast rap war or Bloods and Crips war that killed Tupac, and not, the undercover police inside of Death Row Records.
Now, the cops that were undercover inside of Death Row, were they like literally like just employees inside the building, or they were posing as employees or whatever, or were some of them rappers? I mean, do you know the identities of any of them or no?
Yeah, we have. I list some of the identities of them, some of their real names. I mean, some of their names and stuff. There's many of them, but some of the key ones I list. Some are more well known and are clear cut. Some are a little less well known, but have been said by others that we saw him at all the functions and this guy at all the functions. And a few of them were highly implicated in at the murder of Biggie Smalls. And there's a lot of evidence, of course, that they orchestrated Tupac Shakur's murder. Now, people like Kathy Scott, who, as I said, was an award-winning investigative journalist for the Las Vegas Sun, the police crime reporter. She said that she listed about a page and a half of things that police did wrong at the murder investigation. And she said the police called it the biggest murder investigation of their time, of their careers, and yet they purposely did all of these things wrong. About that murder investigation, and she said it's just complete, it's completely bizarre. They would not do all these things they were supposed to do for the murder investigation, and now she can only go so far without jeopardizing her career. But Russell Poole, that high-level police detective from Los Angeles, came and talked to those Las Vegas police, and they admitted to him that they had a closet full of evidence that they could have pursued. But their superiors told them not to pursue the, what really happened with Tupac Shakur, his murder. And top eyewitness, Yafu Fula, was Tupac's close friend, who was the son of Sekou Odinga, the founder of the Bronx Black Panthers, was Tupac's backup rapper. He was the car behind Tupac's, said, I think I can identify the shooter to the police, and the police completely ignored him and said, we have no forthcoming witnesses, and that's that. And they completely ignored Fula, and then at the next Mike Tyson fight, Fula's shot in the head twice in what FBI files show that police called a professional hit. And so, they tried to cover it up by saying he was involved in drugs, but he had no criminal record whatsoever, and there's no evidence that he was involved in drugs. Wow.
Talk about cleaning house.
Yeah. There's been many murders covering up this Tupac's murder, and there's too many to name right now.
Really? Like, I mean, more than just like, I know this may sound like an odd question, but there's actually, would you say that there's been enough murders or enough weird things that happened after Tupac's death to say that, okay, even if you don't believe the events leading up to Tupac's death and the death itself were a quote unquote conspiracy, if you look at it and you break it up into two segments, the second segment would be the reaction, and then the response to the event, and that itself is in itself a separate event. Would you say there was enough inconsistencies in that response to say there's a huge conspiracy?
Yeah. I mean, 2 books could be written about everything that happened just after Tupac's murder. So many people were killed. Orlando Anderson, who award-winning documentary filmmaker Nick Broomfield called the Lee Harvey Oswald of Tupac's murder, because for being a patsy, a U.S. intelligence patsy to set up that murder, he was killed, and the evidence shows that it was likely some death row cops that killed him. Same car as one of the death row cops was seen. The shots came from that car, from the same type of car. There's just incredible how many people were killed. The most recent one was Frank Alexander, who was Tupac's other main bodyguard, besides Kevin Hackey. Frank Alexander was another witness to the murder. He was right behind Tupac's car, and he was told not to have a gun, not to have and they gave him a phone without a battery in it, a cell phone without a battery in it. And he started coming out with these videos called Tupac Assassination. And I can't say they were the greatest videos, but they definitely had some good information implicating death row records for Tupac's murder. And he died mysteriously. Sources close to him said that, they told me some suspicious facts about the way he, supposedly committed suicide, but it sounded like it was really murder. And that was just recently after coming out with his videos within the past year or two. So even 80-year-old award-winning poet Nikki Giovanni was doing her poetry book tour recently, and on NPR she called Tupac. She said that Tupac was assassinated.
See, so there's more than just one or two people that believe this. This isn't some conspiracy theory that's cruising around on World Star Hip Hop or only in what many people would say. Well, it's only in the hip hop community or the black community that people would be talking about that. And who cares? He's just a rapper. Well, obviously, there's more to it, and it's very deep seated. And you should care, even if you don't listen to rap or you didn't like Tupac, because if they could do it to him, they could do it to you. Just because you don't believe in what he was talking about, even if you don't like Tupac, even if you hate him, you have to defend his freedom of speech, his freedom of assembly. And he wasn't doing anything bad. I mean, getting gangs back together to not fight and kill each other?
Yeah, to stop selling drugs and start turning into activists, yeah.
That's amazing.
Help their communities.
Well, but see, that goes against what they wanted, because they, and I call them the powers that shouldn't be, they're the ones that created that whole gangster culture to begin with in order to help. It's in order to keep, again, it takes the Latino culture and the black culture and it keeps them at a certain level.
Keeps them fighting each other and not fighting for the betterment of everyone and fighting the powers that be, yeah.
And it keeps them distracted. And then they're killing each other off, so it fulfills their eugenics agenda, because they don't, I mean, just Margaret Sanger, she was another eugenicist, the lady that founded Planned Parenthood. When I was younger, I used to think Planned Parenthood was a great thing.
I actually believe in abortion rights, but it is an unbelievable thing that Margaret Sanger was part of that eugenics movement, and it does worry me a little bit, even though I still believe in abortion rights. I do worry that some of these Planned Parenthood, something could be a little wrong there, but
well, no, I agree.
I mean, we'll see.
I agree with a woman's right to choose, but I also I don't I know that these people have used it to push an agenda. These people,
it is a concern. Yeah, it is a concern. I agree.
And you can see that there's this disdain for, and it's not just black people or Latinos or it's all of us. There's this elite few that want everything for themselves, and the rest of us are what they call useless eaters. And we have to look past. One of the reasons I cover this, and I've gotten into this issue so many times, is trying to break down this racism barrier that's constantly thrown out there, and a lot of the racial tension that's actually stirred by the government and the media itself, because it suits their purposes.
Divide and conquer, sure.
Yeah, and I've been trying to break this down and explain to people that, look, a lot of all these different communities, all these different groups, right? You can say the Latino community, the white community, but we're all human. Okay, but we've been segmented by these people, and then they attack each one. And the genius of the plan is not only do they attack each one, but they get the people in the community to attack themselves, and then they get the outside communities to hate on that community in particular. Right. And they do it with all of us. So it's not just everybody against one group. It's everybody against themselves and against each other, and it keeps us all constantly divided. Yeah. And then when you bring up something like the murder of Tupac, and they go, "What? What are you, crazy? Come on, that's a weird conspiracy theory. We're East Coast, West Coast, blah 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 blah." And you start to research it, and you see, holy crap, this is part of the same control paradigm that they've been using, time and time again. So. Incredible work again, John. Thanks so much, Papa. I want to throw the title out there again for the listeners while we're chatting here. The FBI War on Tupac Shakur and Black Leaders. Ladies and gentlemen, you need to get this book to understand, if you're a hardcore listener, okay, and you like research and you appreciate books like I do, which I know many of you do, you need to get this book and you need to sit and take the time to read it, because it'll help you understand what's going on present day. And I'm not saying that Tupac was a saint, he walked on water or anything like that, but the guy was actually not what they portray him to be, and he was actually pretending to be something that he wasn't in order to do something positive.
Mm-hmm.
You're not told that. You're only presented what they want you to know, and that's it. So before we get a little further into it, I have to ask you the obvious question. Was Suge in on it?
Yeah, I argue that he was low man on the totem pole. He was in on it, but he was low man on the totem pole, and that's why he was sitting next to Tupac when he was shot. But again, he wasn't, all evidence shows he was only hit by flying glass and not hit by any bullets. It's amazing that 13 plus bullets would come towards Tupac, and Suge Knight's twice his size, twice his weight, and yet never didn't get hit by any direct bullets, And so there's loads of evidence that he was in on it, and that he helped set it up, and that but once it was accomplished, that they were done with Suge Knight. They didn't really need to protect him anymore, and that's why he only went to jail after Tupac was killed or assassinated. Despite that he was committing constant crimes, Suge Knight was before Tupac died.
And then the secondary part of that question is, what do you make of all the shootings that Suge has been involved in? Are these hits on him, or a botched hits, or are these like legitimate shootings, you think?
Well, the recent shootings of him, I don't know. I don't know much about him. I can imagine, because so much evidence has come out now that people loved Tupac, that people may want to take a shot at him. And I don't want anyone to be shot and killed, really, but it's just, there's a lot of evidence coming out against Suge Knight, and he's the figurehead. But, really it was U.S. intelligence was the real head of all this, I argue. And again, he was low man on the totem pole, Suge Knight. Dave Kenner was higher on the totem pole. Reggie Wright Jr., former cop, supposedly former cop, I think he was undercover cop. His father was head of the Compton, California gang division, and so he was a high level guy about all this. And so, I think there's higher men on the totem pole. That's why Reggie Wright Jr. never went to jail, and he took over Death Row Records when Suge Knight went to jail for a while.
Another thing I wanted to ask you really quick, John, was you mentioned Jimi Hendrix. Now, and I urge people to get the book so they can research it, in depth with the information that you provide. But do you think Hendrix was killed too? I mean, was he turning into a political activist and they killed him?
He was. The whole last year of his life, he was turning into a political activist. He dedicated his last album to the Black Panthers. He gave interviews saying you should support your Black Panthers. He asked Bob Dylan to join him in a political group he was going to try to form. Like a political activist group. There's lots of details in my book about that. But the person that inserted himself as his manager, said he was former MI6 agent, which is British CIA. That manager just came out within the last few years that manager admitted having Jimi Hendrix killed and being part of that murder. He gave a different reason why, but I argue he was constantly trying to sabotage Jimi Hendrix's career. When Jimi Hendrix finally fired him, in the same way, Tupac died about 9 days after he fired Dave Kenner as his death row lawyer. When Jimi Hendrix fired this MI6 agent who was his manager, within 48 hours, he killed Jimi Hendrix, or had Jimi Hendrix killed, and to show the evidence of all the police foul play, all the government foul play around that. But this guy actually admitted it when he was drunk to someone else who finally came out with it in print in his memoir within the last few years.
I kind of had a feeling that they could have killed him, but why? Wasn't sure. Yeah, I knew he was a little bit of an activist, but I didn't know how much. And then, again, I stumble across your work and I start going through the book, and I'm just, again, it blew my mind. So, ladies and gentlemen, you have to get the book. So, two more things, and then I'll let you go, John. Okay. RFK, there's an interesting connection. I mean, even if you put the CIA connection and all that stuff aside, there's an interesting connection with the Rampart Division and the LAPD and their connection to cleaning up and covering up RFK's assassination, and even possible, ties to the assassination and Tupac's murder. Yeah,
it seems strange, I know. But, well, one thing that's interesting, though, is RFK, according to William Pepper, had asked Martin Luther King if he would be considered being his running mate as vice president when he ran for president, when he made the ballot. when it was official. And so after RFK won California, he officially was, it was pretty clear he was going to win the Democratic presidential nomination, and he was going to have Martin Luther King as his running mate. It's been pretty amazing to have that happen so many decades ago. But RFK, when he was assassinated, a high school journalist was taking pictures of RFK as he was leaving the podium, followed him into the pantry, at the kitchen pantry, and took pictures of his actual murder, his actual assassination. Got pictures of the whole scene, just kept clicking and clicking, got pictures of it all. Police came and confiscated that photographer's film. And that young guy sued for decades. He kept suing, kept the lawsuit going. And the police that confiscated that were part of the Ramparts Division. Los Angeles is divided into 18 divisions, and one of them is the Ramparts Division. And within the Ramparts Division, in the 90s, a group called the Crash Unit, or I think it may be the late 80s, early 90s, the Crash Unit developed. And that was undercover police that were doing some incredibly horrible things. Now, I show the evidence and argue that the Crash Unit was actually used against the gang peace truce movement. But these Crash Unit members were also part of Death Row Records' undercover cops. And so in 1996, when they were setting up Tupac's murder that summer, it finally came to trial, this young photographer's case to get the film from the Ramparts Division. And it was finally coming to trial right then. And so a Los Angeles columnist says, what in the world is the Los Angeles government doing using private lawyers on this case around this film when they have literally hundreds of lawyers in the state's attorney, in like their district attorney's office? And I argue that it was to keep the case from looking into keeping all these government lawyers from looking into the Ramparts Division and finding all the operations going on inside there against the gang peace truce movement, against Tupac, and inside of Death Row Records, because that's when they set all that stuff up. And they finally went to trial, and on the way to trial, the police, the judge ordered that the police bring the film to trial to the courthouse, and they said and when they got to the courthouse, they said they lost it out of their car. And so the film was never, the guy never got his film, even though he actually won the case to get his film. And then, a month or two later, Tupac's assassinated.
A good friend of mine, radio broadcaster, researcher, archiver named Leno Sanek, does a show called Black Op Radio. He interviewed him, and I've actually played, I got permission from Len, and I rebroadcasted on my show his interview with his name was Scott
Enyart,
yeah, and it's when you hear, like, not only, okay, fine, he took pictures, they took his film, you kind of expect that, but then when you hear about the lawsuit and that they were robbed, I believe it was, or whatever it was, of the film on the way to the courthouse.
Yeah, it's a joke.
Like, really? Come on. The messenger was robbed.
Yeah.
It's just, when you look at it, you obviously see what's going on. So, yeah, crazy connections. The last thing I wanted to ask you, John, was you had mentioned, I'd heard you mention before during another interview, and I can't remember where it was, but you had mentioned something about Kurt Cobain and his connection or his death actually not being a suicide. Do you believe that he was murdered too?
Yeah, I do. And that's in my next book, Drugs as Weapons Against Us. And again, that you can preview or pre-order that book on either Barnes & Noble's website or Amazon's website. But you'll see a lengthy description of it there. Basically, Cobain, there's a new movie coming out about Cobain called Soaked in Bleach, where they've got top experts. They got the president of the American Pathology Association, Cyril Wecht. They've got even former police officers in Seattle. They got a private detective, two journalists who wrote two books about how Kurt Cobain was murdered and didn't commit suicide. And they found 3 times the level of opium in his system as would kill even a severe addict. So, drugs were used in that, that murder. And, kind of messy attempt to make it look like a suicide. But yes, he was very political, more political than people realize, and I think he was assassinated for it.
So, John, I know you got to go, and I know we are out of time for this interview. I want to say thank you so much for coming on. Thank you for giving me the time and the listeners your time today. And I'm going to have you back on.
Welcome.
I'm going to have you back on to discuss your other book. Go ahead again, really quick. Plug your stuff.
Okay.
Plug everything. If you want to plug Twitter, Facebook, websites, YouTube channels, plug everything you want. Go ahead.
Okay, great. Thanks. Well, you can find out more about the book and the film, The FBI War on Tupac Shakur and Black Leaders, at my website, fbiwarontupac.com. And you can find out about the next book, Drugs as Weapons Against Us, again at Amazon and Barnes & Noble. And I've been working on both books for about 25 years, so I urge you to check them out. And thanks so much, Popeye, for having me on.
It was an honor, John. It was a really intriguing conversation, and I look forward to having you back on soon.
Thanks again. Take care, Popeye.
Have a good night. There you go, ladies and gentlemen. John Potash. Go check his book out. Again, it's titled The FBI War on Tupac Shakur and Black Leaders, U.S. Intelligence's Murderous Targeting of Tupac, MLK, Malcolm, Panthers, Hendrix, Marley, Rappers, and Linked Ethnic Leftists. The short title, again, is The FBI War on Tupac Shakur and Black Leaders. If you type that in on Amazon, you will find it immediately. I suggest you go purchase the book. As you heard tonight in the interview, there's a ton of information in there. And again, John and I can only touch because it's, I had about an hour to interview him when I did the interview at the time. So 60 minutes isn't really a lot to fill with all the stuff that's in that book. I mean, I could fill 60 minutes with a chapter that's in that book. So I suggest you just go get the book itself, go watch the film on YouTube that John's got available, and then you'll have a better understanding of what's been going on. Now, it's not the full picture of everything, and I now know the answer to everything. No, you know a segment of it. So you'll have a better understanding when I make comments. If you tune into this broadcast, you'll have a better understanding when I make a comment about something. And you'll have a better understanding when you're out in the real world and you see what's going on and how things are. Because there's a difference between the old Black Panthers and the new Black Panthers. There's a huge difference between the two. The new ones are actually totally controlled by the CIA. This is a known fact. Known fact. Controlled opposition. Okay, that's the way it is. I'm sure they probably have FBI handlers in there too, because that's the way the feds are. But there's CIA connections to these guys too. It goes even deeper than just the FBI. Well, Popeye, they would never do that. That's against the CIA's charter. Right, because they follow all the rules that have ever been set out for them, right? Ever. Because government ever behaves. Ever in the history of never. So now you have a better understanding of this chunk of history. Tupac wasn't just some dirtbag ghetto rapper who got shot by some other black guy, and good riddance to two douchebags. Screw 'em, I hate rap. Because, oh my God, didn't Biggie get killed later? So it was a back and forth thing, and I'm sure the hitman probably got taken out in a robbery or something. I saw a conspiracy video about it years ago. I swear I saw it. Yes, I did. No, it's more than that, okay? It's a little bit more than just some stupid YouTube conspiracy theory video. And he was a little bit more than some dirtbag thug rapper, as many people look at Tupac as. It was a role that he took on to try to infiltrate that subculture, to enact change. That's amazing. That's amazing that he was actually that good at playing that role. I know a lot of people think Tupac's not dead and he's going to come back like, he's out on an island with Elvis somewhere, the whole Machiavelli thing. I get it. I really honestly think he is dead, and I think they killed him because he was too dangerous. They realized what he was doing. They realized his power. And even if they could subvert him somewhat with drugs and women, someone that has the intellect and the energy and the light. I'm not saying Tupac was perfect, but what he was doing was good. What he was trying to do was a good thing. And someone like that, someone like Pac, as they would say, his energy, you can't control that. He's a wild card. So they might be able to subvert him a little bit here or there, but not totally. Maybe distract him's a better word. He's one of those people that you can't totally control no matter what. When all else fails, we all know how the powers that shouldn't be handle things. They blew John F. Kennedy's head off in the middle of Dealey Plaza, in front of everyone, on purpose. It's a message. They wouldn't have a problem killing Tupac. It's much deeper than just two rappers who were pissed at each other, people. Your non-giving a crap about it is part of this whole problem. This guy was trying to enact real change, but the media told you he was a gangster dirtbag thug. The media could say the same thing about me. I'm covered in tattoos. At first glance, some people might think, I have them all over my hands, my fingers. I'm getting the side of my throat done next month, probably about 3-4 weeks from now. I look like a biker. I even used to own a Harley and ride. I'm actually a really nice guy, though, right? I'm actually pretty smart. I say some pretty intelligent things. Don't judge the book by its cover. And as I always say to you, ladies and gentlemen, our bodies are just vessels for our souls to physically enact with this physical world around us right now. Even if it's just some hologram, like they say, right? And we're creating this reality every second of every day. That's fine. Our physical bodies are still, right now, in this living hologram, if that's what it is. Our physical bodies are the way we interact with the world. So my tattoos are just a paint job. His tattoos were just a paint job. The way he spoke was just the way of life that he was born up in. But that's how he was able to appeal to his peers. Think how asinine it is to judge Tupac and say, well, he was just some gangster thug dirtbag, just by looking at him like that. How do you know? Even at face value, not many other rappers sung about their mothers. And even though he did say bitches and hoes, he still turned around and sung about treating women with respect and not calling them that. How many times do you see that now in the quote-unquote hip-hop community? You don't. All you see is Illuminati symbolism, garbage, pop culture, meshed crap. It's all mixed into one. Hip-hop, pop culture, whatever you want to call it. Whatever they call that music, pop music, whatever. You're aging yourself, Pop. I know I am. Thank you, Darrell Hammond, as Sean Connery from Saturday Night Live. Ladies and gentlemen, this stuff is important to know and important to pay attention to. If we do not pay attention to history, and we do not learn from it, we are doomed to repeat it. And what I see right now is like a redo of the 60s. The racial tension that was back then, they're trying to bring it back. They being the powers that shouldn't be. Because they need to have division in this country. They need something to spark it off. They need an excuse. They need chaos. Because they have their version of order. But they need the chaos, so they have the excuse to bring it about. They need you to beg for it. See, that is the mastery of the plan. They don't have to force it upon you. because they know that won't work. So what they do is they create the chaos and the conditions to have chaotic events like what you see going on now all over the world. And if they can create the chaos, then they go, whoa, 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 whoa. I'm here on my white horse, and I just happen to have the solution to your problems. Well, isn't that a coinky dink? Isn't that a bit convenient? Wouldn't you say? I would. They create the problem because they already know what their solution is, ladies and gentlemen. And this goes on throughout history. The only way we're going to be able to get out of this cycle is to learn. So we have to pay attention. We have to be willing to be open-minded. And maybe, just maybe, we were wrong with our initial assumptions about things. You know how many times I've been wrong in my life? You know what I figured out a long time ago? It's not about whether you're right or wrong about something. It's whether you handle it properly that matters. So if you're wrong, you own up to yourself. Even if you haven't told anybody else something. You had this belief, and then suddenly you find out that belief in whatever is incorrect. A lot of people suppress it at that level. It doesn't even get past that. Don't suppress it. Admit that you were wrong about things. You'd be surprised what you learned. In this case, Tupac's not a thug. It was a role that he played in order to enact greater change. And he did on a pretty large level. And he still touches people to this day with his music. He's still a topic of conversation to this day. They made him a martyr, so to speak, when they killed him. They shouldn't have done it. But that's how they operate. When they're panicked and they freak out, the powers that shouldn't be, they freak out and they make mistakes. That's what you see going on today, ladies and gentlemen. Pay attention. Understand that division is being done on purpose. Because we have strength in numbers. They don't want you to realize that we all have the same thing in common. We're all humans. Doesn't matter what we look like on the outside, what our cultural background is. We're all humans. We all operate physically the same way. We're all brothers and sisters on this planet. It's a tiny little blue marble, ladies and gentlemen. Maybe we should start acting like we're family. Start treating each other better. How about that? That's novel, huh? Perhaps treating one another better. There's a hell of an idea. Anyway, we're running out of time. The break's coming up. End of the broadcast. So, I want to thank you all for listening again tonight, ladies and gentlemen. I love each and every single one of you. I want you to remember that you really all are the answers to our problems. As I say, the solutions to our problems are an inside job. They truly are. I love every single last one of you, and I believe in every single last one of you. I'll catch you all again Thursday night. I'm out.